My body was so cold that I didn't really know where my body started and the water began.
There will always be a smiley face with one of those oxytocin smiles with people coming out of the water.
Every year in the UK we have between 400 and 600 water-related incidents.
Jumping in the water is a euphoria, the sense of community as well, like there are other people there doing something as insane as I am.
We think that we could save the NHS millions and millions of pounds. It's a wonderful, wonderful therapy.
Can cold water therapy help to treat addiction? A phenomenon that grew during the course of the pandemic, plunging into freezing water has been described by many as euphoric, life-changing, and has left those brave enough to try it flying high. It's claimed taking a cold dip can increase levels of the beta endorphin, which binds to opioid receptors the same way opioid drugs do. Some say because of this, wild swimming can help addicts ease post-acute withdrawal and learn willpower through discomfort. Sonder, a group of recovering addicts in Scotland, spend every Saturday swimming in Loch Venacher. I boarded the plane to Glasgow to test the waters for myself and understand how a cold swim has impacted their journey to get clean.
I see cold water therapy as a form of meditation almost, and that kind of settles my brain in a way, because for a long time I needed drinking drugs to just live with my head. I couldn't live with my thoughts without it. So this kind of replaces that, I guess, in a way.
In the beginning of your recovery, do you think that it would have helped you?
It probably would have, because like in early recovery, in my experience, you put down the drink and the drugs, but you're still just, your head's still messy. You get all your thoughts and emotions back, stuff you've been running away from for a long time, and you have to sort of learn to deal with them. So I think if I had found this sooner, it probably would have been easier.
Comparing it with the drugs, I mean, I'm 13 months away from substances and from alcohol. It's enjoyment without the paranoia behind it. Basically, it's the same sort of high, the same sort of endorphins that I used to get when I first started using.
At present, the most common treatment program for addicts entering rehab is the 12 steps. Focusing heavily on spiritual progression and finding a power higher than oneself, the system has been criticised for being exclusionary, outdated and harsh.
Where does it kind of fall down? I think that because of the religious, they kind of had association. You know, God is all over. You know, the spirituality is all over it. That can put people off of it. Some programs have changed. Some have become quite dogmatic. Neurodiversity. You know, being expected to do things that maybe they can't do, it getting pushed through the program too quick with overzealous sponsors who haven't got a lot of recovery behind them. So yeah, I do think that, you know, I wonder if I was coming in now, to be honest, if I went into certain groups, how I would be. I might well just turn on my heels and walk back out the door again.
It's known that about 40 to 60% of individuals relapse within 30 days of leaving inpatient treatment centres. If cold water therapy was to be successful, there's potential it could set these numbers right. But could it ever replicate artificial vices, and is the high just a one-hit wonder?
I don't think I've found something artificial that's similar, really. You know, I've taken antidepressants in my time, you know, I've drunk alcohol, you know, but no, nothing. I guess those things can often have a depressant situation when it runs off, but I don't think you get that with swimming.
Having tried and tested the method and collected anecdotal evidence suggesting this really could work, I headed back to London. It was time to check in with the experts. First came Mike, who with his initiative Chill UK is campaigning for cold water therapy to be prescription on the NHS for mental health and other related illnesses.
So our experience was taking this group of 8 people who were either had alcohol or drug issues, and they were all undergoing treatment. I would say 3/4 of them said that it was life-changing. I'd say half of them are still swimming. There was one person who had the DTs, and by going into the cold water, it again, as I said, reset the brain in a way, and then they didn't have the DTs. And I think it was a wonderful, wonderful therapy to go hand in hand with the therapy that they probably need to get off the drugs, whether it is methadone or whether they are going to counselling or anything else.
In the US, the feeling towards methadone and its place in recovery was less favourable.
Cold water swim has a million advantages over methadone. It's not as comfortable the first few days, but after that, you will be free, and you can just get high on cold water swim and feel normal. With methadone, some people have called it liquid handcuffs, because you're really tied to methadone, any kind of replacement therapy. The difference between methadone or Suboxone, these replacements that come in a bottle, and the replacements we're talking about, which the ones that your own brain makes, is your brain doesn't adapt to its own chemicals. It only adapts to the external ones. So it's made to release opioids every time you swim in the cold water. And if anything, that capacity will get bigger.
As for the legitimacy of a bodily response, a professor also working on the campaign to prove cold water's worth vouched for its transformative and lasting effects.
So what happens to the body in terms of the initial responses, where we see the cold shock response? So that results in a big increase in an inspiratory gasp, where you go, and then rapid breathing thereafter, which is uncontrollable for a short period of time. We also know that you get an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, and a flood of hormonal responses as well, including things like increased serotonin levels, beta endorphins. And we think these physical responses may contribute to an improvement in mood. So we have something called the post-swim high.
So it seems safe to say there's massive potential for this natural high to aid in the process of removing artificial stimulants from people's lives. However, with more research needed, there's a longer road to go down before we can officially verify whether a plunge in freezing temperatures truly does more than just give you brain freeze.
Right, we're leaving it for today, but we got it.